Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today, as of just a few minutes ago, we now have our, follow-up, post from the devs that they have done now from PTS Phase 1 to 2. We now have one heading into Phase 3, which does begin tomorrow, and I will let you all know that I will be streaming the PTS tomorrow when it goes live. We do not have an exact time yet, and so I obviously cannot give you an exact start for the stream, but whenever it is, I think last week it was around noon or maybe a little before. I will be live when that goes live, so keep an eye out on my community tab for updates on that. But I want to dive into this because I did give it a glance when it went live, and there are some pretty interesting things in here. While Phase 3 is looking like it's going to be pretty predictable with bug fixes as well as all the content that was in Phases 1 and 2, we do have some very interesting clarifications and changes regarding some of the stuff with the gear set and the exotics as well as expertise. So let's just dive into it because I want to give you guys a rundown of what we can expect heading into Phase 3, and of course when the update goes live with, in a few weeks, not that long from now. Alright, PTS check-in Phase 2. Hello agents, we recently concluded Phase 2 of our PTS for PC players on UB Connect. We are immensely grateful for all the feedback we received following Phase 2, and we want to share our findings and next steps based on your experiences on the PTS. In Phase 2, we wanted to focus your feedback and attention specifically on new gear, balance adjustments, and countdown changes. So let's just get into it with gear balancing. One thing that they did in here that I like is that you can see in red, they put these like statements that kind of sum up community sentiment that they've seen. And I kind of like that because it kind of guides, the responses that we're getting as far as that is concerned. So for the Heartbreaker gear set, some people said Heartbreaker is too powerful. Right now, we are happy with what it adds to the game, and there are no plans to change that anytime soon. We have looked at the conversation on the efficiency of the gear set, and so far, we are satisfied with where it has landed. Can't say I disagree. I didn't get a chance to try it in PvP, but I think it seems pretty solid, That's just my general impression. We'll get into more of that as we go on. Then some people said to buff Heartbreaker. The way it was behaving during Phase 2 with stacks disappearing after 5 seconds instead of starting to diminish similar to the way Striker behaves was intended, but your feedback convinced us to do things differently. So there is one change coming to Heartbreaker. In Phase 3, you can expect the following changes. You will lose 2 stacks per second instead of losing all stacks after 5 seconds. I think that's a pretty good change. It's more consistent, it's easier to manage, it's better to understand, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm good with that. Heartbreaker is blue. Some people were upset that it came with armor cores instead of weapon damage cores. We do not see the need to change it at the time, but we will keep a close eye on your feedback after the TU15 release. While Heartbreaker has a damage buff, this set is also a durability one, and thus the armor bonus you get from it makes more sense with a higher armor value, hence the blue cores. Again, don't really have an issue with it. Gear sets are pretty easy to get, whatever attribute you want in the second slot, so you can roll the main slot if you want. So I don't really care one way or the other, to be honest. But that all sounds good. I'm intrigued that they're doing that change to the stack diminishing, and I'm actually pretty excited for it. I think that'll make it feel better in the middle of combat. For the Kingbreaker named weapon, people were saying the fire rate is too low. They have upgraded it from 500 to 650. This applies to the TKB-408 assault rifle as well. Cool, I mean, sure. I didn't use it a ton, but I know people were saying it was definitely not performing very well. And so I'm kind of interested that they just bumped that without, tuning the archetype at all, but whatever, cool. Yeah, we'll come back to that in a second because they say something else for another one. The Dare LMG was using, or it does use 5.56 attachments. This is now fixed. The blue screen resolved issues. The blue screen does not have the exclusive skin. This is now fixed. So what I find kind of weird is that every single new weapon in the PTS had an old skin, right? The blue screen, the Dread Edict, the Dare, and the Kingbreaker, and the normal variants of those. But the only one on here that says they fixed the skin issue was the blue screen, right? So I would hope, or maybe they're just doing it with this one, but you would think that all 4 of these should have that same note, that the exclusive skin is now fixed, right? Because they all looked like, this looked like a regular AK, this looked like the Stoner, this looked like the Stoner, and this looked like just a regular SVD with nothing special about it. So I hope that if they're doing it for the one, they're doing it for all of them. Some people have said they want the surprise to remain intact until the update releases. I don't really care either way. I just hope that that's being taken into consideration there. For the Catharsis, some people said it feels too strong. Please don't nerf it. We are happy that you're excited about it, and right now we have no plans to make any changes. I think that's fine. Honestly, it's hard for me to, at least in Phase 2, this is like my first PTS, right? Because I usually don't play stuff on PC. It was hard for me to get a sense of balance, because for as familiar as I am with this game, any little change to the experience feels really big to me. And so even playing, even though I was playing on just a fine, rig and all that, I could tell the differences between that and my normal character on Xbox with my, builds and power and all of that. So I don't know, in like minute balance stuff was hard for me to get a sense of, but the catharsis felt fine. And so I'm fine with their decision to not change it at this point. I guess we'll see how that goes once we get into the update. I also wasn't able to do any PvP, so that's the thing. Some people probably had more thoughts on that than I did. For Countdown, they said, as they mentioned earlier, their goal was to make it challenging but not impossible to beat for 8 match-made players of mixed build qualities. It would also add an additional challenge for players with more organized groups and better builds to try and complete it with less than 8 players. You can read more about our PTS Phase 1 findings here. In that, they said they were going to increase the difficulty and look into adding additional difficulty options down the road. So let's see what they said. Right now, we are happy with the mode's difficulty, and your Phase 2 feedback echoed our sentiment. There are no plans to change the general difficulty for the remaining PTS phase, as well as the TU15 candidate master build. That's an interesting phrase, but I guess that just means the update itself. Once again, we thank you for all your opinions shared with us on the forums and social media channels. These changes are a direct result of your proactivity and dedication. Of course, we will keep monitoring the countdown feedback once TU15 is out and more players can get their hands on the mode. And as a quick reminder, the possibility of adding other difficulty options is under investigation, and you can expect to hear more from us after the TU15 release. So honestly, this sounds fine to me. The one thing that I did get a really good sense of in Phase 2 was the new countdown difficulty, and it felt great. It felt exactly what I think it should have been for an 8-player match-made mode of its type. But the one thing I did think, at least from my recollection of their wording from the Phase 1 stuff, I thought they'd said that they were definitely looking into adding more difficulties. But this is the possibility of it. So I guess we'll see where it goes down the road. Regardless, I'm happy that we are at a better place now with difficulty. That is exactly the type of stuff that the PTS is meant to sort out, so I'm glad they did that. Matchmaking issues. While the situation with Delta errors has improved since Phase 1, we are aware that it is still present and negatively affects the PTS experience. Following Phase 2, the majority of issues have been identified and fixed for Phase 3. To our knowledge, very specific conditions need to be met for the players to receive the Delta error. Some of you reported waiting a long time to be match-made, while others with others to get into 2 groups of 8 players. The reason for this is that Phase 2 population was lower compared to Phase 1, since the server opening time was not announced up front. Going forward, we will make sure to be more consistent in our communication about timing to help you fit the Division 2 happenings in your schedule. Well, we don't have that yet, but hopefully we will soon, and that all makes sense to me. Glad they're aware of that. All right, expertise. This is where we get some interesting stuff. PTS Phase 1 feedback, expertise changes, and some of the main points we took from Phase 2. Some people were saying upgrade costs are too high. We heard your concerns about the cost being too high, especially for those of you who tend to have shorter play sessions, and we agree that every playstyle should be taken into account and rewarded appropriately for the time spent in the game. After careful consideration, we have decided to settle on lowering the costs of field recon data, SHD calibration, and exotic materials by half from level 11 and up to level 20. Levels 1 through 10 and 21 plus remain unchanged. We believe that these changes would suit the wider range of the Division 2 players. There you have it. I don't think that's probably the level of lowering that some people would have wanted. I didn't really get that far in the PTS to really get a great sense of the cost once you get up that high, but I guess we'll see how it plays out when the update releases. On top of the reduction mentioned above, we reduced the material requirements for all ranks of gear pieces by another half. Now, gear pieces will require 2 times less materials for upgrades and make it more consistent with the number of materials needed for weapons and skill upgrades. Cool. That sounds good to me. Some other people said expertise armor bonuses should be increased. We hear you, but we do not want to react too fast, as increasing armor even further could have big consequences. We would like players to have more time with the feature after TU15's release, after which we will actively be looking for your feedback on armor bonuses. And then UI features and quality of life improvements. They added the donate all button. It was not working correctly, and they fixed it. Cool. Still really glad they added that. That was a really good change. Other Phase 2 observations we want to highlight: the character floating head after booting up the PTS. I have to include this just because it was funny. Hope you weren't thinking about sneaking into the restricted section of the library with your newfound cloak of invisibility, as the issue is now fixed. Good little Harry Potter joke there. Shield changes. Following your Phase 2 feedback, we are happy to hear that you are pleased with the shield changes. Right now, we have no plans to change or revert the existing meta, but feel free to let us know if you think otherwise. I'm fine with that. Some people are upset with how it's functioning in PvE. I tend to think that I'm happy to see shields go as far away as possible. So that's my thoughts on that. And then they addressed the no console PTS thing again. They did an article on it, which is what they link right there. I will put these patch notes in the description if you want to check it out. And if you want more clarification on why they don't do PTS consoles very often, definitely go check that out because it's pretty insightful. Thank you again for partaking in Phase 2 of the title update 15 PTS, and please do keep your thoughts coming, as community feedback has always been helpful to us in making the necessary adjustments to the upcoming content. Until next time, the Division 2 development team. There you have it, folks. Those are the things we can expect heading into Phase 3 of the PTS for TU15. I would say the biggest focuses here are the changes they're making to the expertise cost upgrades. Very glad we are getting that before we jump into the actual TU15 release. Hopefully this will make it feel better. Again, didn't get a ton of experience with it myself. Hopefully that's something I can check out tomorrow, because again, I will remind you guys that I will be streaming the PTS once it goes live. We don't yet have the exact time, but once we do, I will try and communicate that on my community tab, and you will see me live at that time. Excited to see if we get any of the actual models for the new weapons or the exotics. Seems like at least the blue screen we will. Maybe, I don't know, and the other stuff as well. And yeah, Heartbreaker's going to be a little bit stronger, so that's cool. I was already digging it. Glad to see more of that. The countdown changes are sticking, so again, good to see that. This is all pretty expected stuff, but stuff that I'm excited about nonetheless. And yeah, hope you guys are too. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on to be updated every time I upload. Let me know your thoughts on all the things in here. I have a feeling that most of you are going to want to talk about the expertise changes, so certainly let me know your thoughts on that, as well as anything else that caught your eye in this breakdown. As I said 2 times already, I will see you tomorrow. Very excited to jump into Phase 3, and then hopefully we'll have TU15 before too long now. Very excited to finally have some new content hit the live servers for the Division 2. The wait is almost finally over. So once again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and until the next one, guys, RogueGold out.